They say obsession begins like a candle flame, warm, flickering, harmless. But the truth is, obsession never starts softly. It's violent in silence, loud in stillness, hidden in plain sight. My name is Jaden, 25, quiet, the kind people overlook at parties. But I notice everything, especially her. Her name was Claire, my mother's best friend. 42, elegant, always laughing like she hadn't just survived a loveless marriage. Her presence was sunlight wrapped in perfume. She moved like she was trying not to break. She broke anyway, and I was the one who did it. They'll say I lost control, but I didn't. I knew what I was doing when I slipped into her apartment. When I touched her like a man touches the woman he shouldn't love. When I whispered into her neck that I'd rather kill her than lose her. They called it a crime of passion. But love, real love, was never gentle with me. It ruined me, and her. If you ask me why I did it, I'll say this: because she loved me back, just not enough to stay. Welcome to MG's Love Stories, where passion burns, hearts break, and you can't stop watching. Don't just listen, feel it. Like this story. Share, subscribe, and let's dive in. I first saw her differently on a Tuesday. The air was warm, the kind that made clothes cling to your back and skin feel too loud. I was leaning against the kitchen doorway, sipping flat soda, when she walked in, white shirt slightly damp, her hair twisted into a lazy knot, lips cherry red. She didn't see me watching. She never did until it was too late. "Jaden," she said, flicking her keys onto the counter. "Can you grab the mail for me? I think I'm expecting a letter from my lawyer." She spoke to me like I was a son, a sweet, dependable boy, not a man with a pulse that raced every time her perfume kissed the air. "Sure," I mumbled, turning away quickly. Back then, I lived in the guest house. My mother rented the room from her, Helen, her best friend since college. I was saving for grad school, delivering furniture on the side, lying to myself that I didn't need more. But I craved her, the kind of craving you bury deep in your chest because you know it's wrong. She was beautiful in the way storms are beautiful, and I had always loved storms. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to the soft creak of her footsteps across the hallway. I imagined her brushing her hair in the mirror, her robe slipping off one shoulder. My fingers clenched the sheets. I hated myself for it, and loved it too. A week passed. One evening, she sat on the front steps drinking wine. Her legs were crossed, nails painted black, soft music playing from her phone. I was walking back from a delivery when I saw her under the porch light, skin glowing amber gold. "Wine?" she asked, tilting the bottle toward me. I hesitated, then nodded. She poured into a second glass, her fingers brushing mine as she handed it over. I flinched. "You're tense," she said, sipping slowly. "You always watch people like you're reading them." "Maybe I am," I replied. She smiled. "So what have you read about me?" I looked her dead in the eye. "You look like someone who tries hard to be okay." Her lips parted slightly. "No one's ever said that to me," she whispered. The spark wasn't in the wine. It was in the silence that followed. The next morning, I found a sticky note on my door. "Can you fix the leaky sink in my bathroom? I'll be out for groceries. Keys under the mat." That day, I walked into her bedroom for the first time. The scent of jasmine and lavender, silk sheets, a book half-read on her pillow, a red scarf on the doorknob, a note scribbled in the margins. "Don't forget who you used to be." I wasn't supposed to see that, but I already saw too much. When I finished fixing the sink, I stood in front of her mirror. I imagined her behind me, watching, her fingers tracing my spine, her voice low in my ear, saying my name like a secret. I left her bathroom with more than just damp hands. I left it with a decision. The spark was real, and fire was coming. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me, is it ever love if you're afraid of it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button so this story finds more people. I started finding reasons to be near her. Small things at first, a package at the door, an offer to carry groceries, casual repairs that didn't really need doing. She never refused, but she never encouraged it either. That was the cruelty in her kindness. One rainy Thursday, she asked if I could help bring up boxes from the basement. Her divorce papers had come through. She said she was finally free. But her voice broke on the word free. The basement smelled of dust and damp wood. She was wearing jeans and a gray sweater, sleeves pushed up, exposing her wrists. We worked in silence, the kind that pressed down like fog. When she reached for a box, our fingers brushed. She didn't move away immediately, just looked at me, slow and deliberate, like she'd caught herself in a thought she wasn't ready to admit. "Thank you," she said softly, once we were done. I wanted to ask her what she was thanking me for, the help with the boxes, or the way I was looking at her like she was the only woman in the world. But I didn't. Not yet. That night I dreamt of her. Not the gentle kind of dream, the kind that feels like memory. Her breath on my throat, her hand gripping my jaw, her laugh low and dangerous in the dark. I woke up aching, restless, and more certain than ever that this wasn't going away. 2 days later, it happened again, the pause. She'd been baking. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and burnt sugar. I came in to grab a glass of water, but she was in my way, leaning against the counter. There was flour on her cheek. I told her. She smiled and said, "Wipe it off for me." I froze. Her eyes didn't move from mine. Slowly, I reached up, my thumb brushing her skin. It was such a small thing, a tiny act. But my pulse was so loud, I was sure she could hear it. I didn't realize I'd stepped closer until my hip touched the counter. She noticed. I saw it in the flicker of her gaze before she stepped away. "Thanks, Jaden," she murmured, turning back to her mixing bowl. But her voice was different. That night, I told myself I needed distance. I walked through the city, rain soaking my hoodie, telling myself to stop before I destroyed the fragile thing between us. But every streetlight I passed felt like a warning, and every shadow looked like her. Sunday afternoon, she asked if I wanted to join her on the balcony. It was windy, the kind of wind that made loose hair whip across your face. She handed me a mug of coffee, sat across from me, and we just existed. "I used to believe in soulmates," she said suddenly, staring out over the rooftops. "But I think maybe some people just come into your life to ruin you." Her voice was quiet, but it was a confession. I wanted to tell her I'd ruin her gently. Instead, I asked, "And if you wanted to be ruined?" She laughed, but it was nervous. She didn't answer. I thought of that laugh all night. I thought of it when I heard her footsteps in the hallway past midnight. I thought of it when I realized my door wasn't fully closed, and she paused there, hand on the frame, not stepping in, but not walking away either. She didn't say anything, just stood there in the dim light, her expression unreadable. Then she left. The next morning, I found another note under my door. "Don't forget dinner tonight. Just us." It was nothing, and it was everything. The clink of cutlery was too loud, or maybe it was just that the air between them was too quiet. Jaden sat across the table, elbows resting loosely, watching Claire like he was memorizing every move. It should have been unnerving, but instead, she felt a heat curl low in her stomach. His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth when she took a sip of wine. He noticed that, and she set the glass down slower than necessary. She wore black tonight. Not the careless black of comfort, but the deliberate kind that knew it was trouble. The neckline wasn't low, but it was enough to make Jaden think about the hollow of her throat. The pulse there. They had been dancing around this for weeks, and tonight felt like the floor between them was wearing thin. He cut another piece of steak, but his mind wasn't on the food. It was on the way her knee brushed his under the table. Like, not accidental. Claire could pull away. She should pull away, but she didn't. There was something about him tonight. The way his voice was lower, slower, like every word was a secret. He asked about her day, and she answered, but she wasn't sure what she was saying. She was too aware of how close his hand was to hers on the table. When she reached for her wine again, her fingers grazed his knuckles. He didn't flinch. Neither did she. If Jaden leaned back, maybe this would cool down. But he didn't want it to cool down. She was laughing at something. Not a big laugh, just a small, private one. He would kill to know which part of him she found funny. Then she tilted her head and asked, "Another glass?" And he realized they'd both been drinking slower than usual, like they were stretching out the excuse to stay here. They ended up in the kitchen, rinsing dishes they didn't really need to wash right away. The room felt too small, or maybe they were just too close. The sleeve of his shirt brushed her bare arm, and it was ridiculous how it made her shiver. She stepped sideways to make space, but he stepped the same way, blocking her near the counter. His hand moved toward the dish towel hanging beside her. Their eyes locked for a second too long. "Sorry," he said, but his voice didn't sound sorry at all. Jaden could have stepped back. He should have. Instead, he stayed there, close enough to smell the faint citrus of her shampoo. Her hair had fallen over one shoulder. Without thinking, he reached out and pushed it back. It was a stupid, small touch, but it stopped her in place. She looked up at him now, not away, not down, but straight at him. That was the thing about Jaden. He didn't rush. He waited, and the waiting was its own kind of pressure, heavier than if he'd just closed the space entirely. Claire's chest rose slow, like she was trying not to scare the moment away. But she was the one who tipped her chin up. Jaden didn't remember deciding to move. One moment he was breathing her in. The next he was leaning, his palm finding the counter beside her hip. She was right here, close enough that her breath skimmed his mouth. If he moved an inch, it would be over. Claire should have thought of reasons to stop, but her body wasn't listening. His other hand came up, not touching, hovering just near her jaw like he was asking for permission without words. The only answer she gave was not stepping away. That was the crack in the wall, his undoing. He let his hand cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek. Her eyes fluttered, not closed, not open, like she was standing at the same edge he was. Should he kiss her, or would they both step back? His touch was warm, steady, and for one wild second, Claire leaned into it. Not much, just enough that she knew he felt it. The air between them was electric. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, and she swore she could hear his too. She didn't know which one was faster. Jaden's thumb was still on her cheek, his face inches from hers. He could close the gap right now, but the way she looked at him, half wanting, half warning, made him pause, not out of fear, out of something heavier. If he kissed her, it wouldn't just be a kiss. Claire should have broken the stare, broken the moment. Instead, her gaze dropped to his mouth. That was her mistake. His breath hitched, and before she could think, his forehead rested against hers. They stayed like that, not kissing, not pulling away, just sharing the same impossible space. It was almost worse than if they'd gone all the way. Her skin under his hand, the whisper of her breath against his lips. It was a slow burn that felt like it could set the room on fire. He wanted to taste her. He wanted to ruin this careful, almost. But she was the one who finally leaned back. Claire stepped away, her pulse still racing. His hand fell, but the ghost of it stayed on her skin. "We should," she started, but didn't finish. She didn't even know what she was going to say. He nodded, but it was tight, restrained. Like her, he was pretending to get air when really they were both still drowning in the same thought. What would have happened if they hadn't stopped? The rest of the evening was quiet, polite. They talked about nothing, but their eyes kept betraying them. Finding each other, holding a little too long. When he left, his fingers brushed hers on the doorframe. It wasn't an accident, and it wasn't enough. Days stretched and blurred, slow and heavy like the thick fog that settled over the city in the early mornings. The air between us was taut, charged with silent promises and unsaid words. I could still feel her presence lingering in the rooms she left behind, in the scent of jasmine and sandalwood that clung stubbornly to the curtains and furniture. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. The way the light caught her hair just right, the curve of her neck, the quiet strength hidden behind her tired smile. I told myself to keep my distance, to let this fire die before it burned me completely. But the truth was, that distance only made the craving grow worse. Like an open wound I couldn't stop touching. The memory of that night, the night we nearly crossed the line but pulled back, haunted me in every breath. Her skin had hummed under my fingers, warm and inviting. Her breath had whispered against my lips like a dare. I kept replaying that moment, desperate to convince myself it was better that we stopped. But every thought betrayed me. I was spiraling, reckless and consumed by the ache she left behind. I found myself standing outside her door more times than I could count, caught between the terror of what I wanted and the shame of wanting it at all. When finally I knocked, my heart was pounding so loudly I feared she'd hear it. She opened the door, her hair tumbling free around her shoulders, framing a face that was both vulnerable and fierce. Her eyes met mine, and in them, I saw the war raging inside her. The hesitation, the desire, the fear. The fragile restraint we'd both clung to was gone. In its place was something raw, undeniable. I stepped inside, and the space between us shrank until it felt like the rest of the world had ceased to exist. We didn't speak. Words were unnecessary. Our bodies said everything that was too dangerous to voice. Her skin was soft beneath my fingertips, the warmth of her cheek burning into my palm. I could taste the faint trace of cinnamon on her breath, the subtle sweetness of wine lingering on her lips. I pulled her close, my hands tangled in the dark waves of her hair, desperate to hold on to something real in a world that felt like it was slipping through my fingers. Our lips met with an urgency that startled me. No hesitation, no gentle probing, just a desperate claiming. The kiss was a rush of heat and need, a storm breaking after a long drought. It wasn't just passion. It was the weight of everything we'd been holding back crashing down in one fierce, burning moment. My heart hammered in my chest as I pressed her against me, needing to feel her completely, to erase the distance that had been between us for too long. But even in that moment of surrender, a shadow flickered in the back of my mind, doubt. Could I truly give her what she deserved? Or was I just another piece of her past? Another scar she'd carry? I wanted to be the one to heal her, to hold the broken parts gently. But the truth was, I was broken too, tangled in my own darkness, and I feared our love might be the fire that finally consumed us both. She shivered under my touch, and though part of me wanted to drown in the sensation, I knew this was just the beginning. Our bodies spoke a language our words couldn't yet form, whispers of longing, of fear, of a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find salvation in each other. The days that followed were a whirlwind of stolen moments and quiet confessions. Nights wrapped in the soft glow of lamplight, where we bared pieces of ourselves we'd never shown anyone else. But possession is a cruel companion. The more I wanted to give her everything, the more the shadows of jealousy and fear crept in, tightening around my heart like chains. I wanted to keep her close, to make sure she belonged only to me, but I also knew that love demanded freedom, a truth I wasn't sure I could accept. She was slipping deeper under my skin, becoming the ache I couldn't ignore. But I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the battle between surrendering to this love and guarding what little of herself she had left. Could she trust me not to break her? Could I be the man to hold her without crushing her fragile heart? I watched her, marveling at the way she moved through the world with quiet strength, even as her walls cracked around the edges. The nights were a beautiful chaos, our bodies tangled, breaths mingling, whispered promises in the dark. But every touch, every kiss, carried the weight of everything we'd left unsaid. We were caught in a dangerous dance, teetering on the edge of something that could save us or destroy us. The point of no return wasn't marked by a single act but by the slow unraveling of all the careful lies we told ourselves. When she looked at me with a mixture of fear and longing, I knew we'd passed it. There was no going back from this love, no way to undo the damage or rewind the clock. We were tangled irrevocably, hearts exposed and raw. In the quiet moments, when the world outside faded away, I wondered if love was really about possession, or if it was about the bravery to hold someone close while letting them be free. But I was too lost in the dark to find the answer. All I knew was that I wanted her. All of her, the broken parts and the beautiful scars. And I feared that wanting might be the thing that destroyed us both. The morning after everything changed, the air felt too heavy, thick with the aftermath of choices that couldn't be undone. Sunlight filtered weakly through the curtains, casting long shadows across the floor like the ghosts of all the unspoken truths between us. I lay awake, listening to the soft sound of her breathing beside me. Steady, peaceful, so unlike the storm raging inside me. The same hands that had held her close now trembled, caught in a web of fear, desire, and regret. We'd crossed a line, not with words but with the weight of our bodies pressed together in a night that felt like a surrender and a reckoning all at once. But dawn was a cruel reminder that passion had its price. What came after wasn't the calm we'd hoped for. It was the silence, the questions, the trembling doubt. I watched her from the edge of the bed, tracing the curve of her jaw, the soft rise and fall of her chest. She looked fragile, as if the night had taken more from her than it had given. When she shifted and opened her eyes, meeting mine, the world tilted. No words came at first, only the electric charge of everything we'd done, everything we hadn't said. "Jaden," she whispered, voice barely more than breath. "I know," I said, the weight of those two syllables heavy with everything I felt and feared. The trial wasn't just in what happened between us. It was in what followed. Days blurred into each other, a chaotic swirl of stolen moments and growing tension. Outside, life went on with its careless rhythm, but inside those walls, every glance, every touch carried the risk of shattering what fragile peace we had. We were bound by secrets now, by the raw intensity of something neither of us knew how to control. Her eyes held shadows I couldn't reach, doubts I couldn't erase, and I was losing ground, haunted by the possibility that maybe I was the one who would break us. The first crack came when her phone rang late one evening. I heard her voice, soft but sharp, a stranger's name in the middle of a conversation that made the air between us freeze. She caught my stare and swallowed hard, a flicker of panic crossing her face. The call ended, but the silence stretched too long. "I have to tell you something," she said finally, voice low. My heart clenched, waiting for the blow I knew was coming. "There's more to my divorce than I told you," she said. "There's someone else. Someone who's been in the picture longer than I admitted." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. The fragile trust one thought we had felt like it was cracking, splintering under the weight of secrets. "Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded, voice rough. "Because I was scared," she admitted. "Scared you'd walk away. Scared I'd lose you before we even really began." It was the first real trial, testing the strength of what we had, the limits of forgiveness and trust. But the hardest trial was yet to come. Weeks later, the city whispered rumors. Whispers that wound their way to my mother's ears, to hers, to everyone who knew us. The fragile walls we'd built were crumbling under the weight of judgment and suspicion. The night I found the note on my doorstep, plain, typed, and cold, it was like a blade through my chest. "Stay away from her. This ends now." I didn't need to guess who sent it. The world was closing in, and the price of our love was rising. That night, we faced each other in the dim glow of the kitchen, the note between us like a wound we couldn't ignore. "I don't want to lose you," she said, voice breaking. "I won't let them win," I promised, though doubt gnawed at me. But promises felt fragile. The trial was no longer just about us. It was about everything outside those walls, the judgment, the past, the scars we couldn't hide. We fought, not just with words, but with the shadows inside us. The jealousy, the fear, the obsession twisting tighter with every stolen moment. Love wasn't enough. It was never enough. And as the city's cold eyes watched, I realized that to keep her, to keep us, I'd have to fight harder than I ever imagined. Not just for her, but for the fragile thing we built in the ruins of our pasts. The silence after the storm is the loudest sound I've ever heard. Days later, when the dust settled and the world moved on without us, I stood alone in the apartment we had shared. The walls still heavy with memories, thick with everything we never said. The scent of her perfume lingered faintly, a cruel reminder that some ghosts don't leave, no matter how far you run. I traced the curve of the empty glass on the counter, the spot where her hand used to rest, the quiet spaces where laughter once lived. The ruins of what we had, broken pieces that no apology or promise could ever piece back together. I replayed every moment, every stolen glance, every almost kiss, every breath too close. I saw her face in the dark, the way her eyes held both fire and fear. I heard her laugh, fragile and haunted, echoing like a prayer I'd never answered. We were never meant to last. Love had never been enough. I thought about the words she said on the balcony that day. Some people just come into your life to ruin you. She was right. We ruined each other. Her leaving was quiet. No dramatic goodbyes. No shouts or tears. Just a note left on the kitchen table, written in her precise, careful handwriting. I hoped we could be different, but some lines shouldn't be crossed, even if the heart disagrees. Take care of yourself, Jaden. I folded the note slowly, the weight of it sinking into my chest. I wanted to call her to beg her to stay, but I already knew, that some breaks aren't meant to be mended. I walked through the empty rooms, fingers grazing the cold walls, searching for traces of her, of us. The house felt like a tomb for a love that never bloomed. Weeks passed. The nights grew colder, lonelier. I drowned myself in work, in noise, in anything to quiet the ache. But the ghost of her stayed, a shadow that moved with me, whispering what I'd lost. One night, I found myself back on the porch where we first shared wine. The amber light flickered softly, casting long shadows that danced like memories. I closed my eyes and let the cold air fill my lungs. Love isn't always the happy ending. Sometimes, it's the beautiful ruin that shapes who we become. And as I stood there, under the fading light, I understood. She was never mine to love. If you've ever loved someone you couldn't keep, or been the one who left, share your story in the comments. Hit like to support real, raw love stories that don't always have a happy ending. Subscribe and ring the bell to stay with MG's Love Stories, where every heartache finds a voice. Thank you for following Jaden and Claire's story. Until next time, keep your hearts brave and your stories real.